The meeting is now live on YouTube.
Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Environment and Performance Committee. My name is Councillor Judith Skinner, and I am Chairman for this committee, and Councillor Judy Wellborn is Vice Chairman. As our protocol for ensuring public awareness who is in attendance this evening, I would ask Jeanette to do a roll call. Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll read out members' names in alphabetical order if you could indicate your presence. Councillor Tom Ashton.
Present.
Councillor Peter Bedford.
Present.
Councillor Anton Danny.
Present.
Councillor Deborah Evans.
Present.
Councillor Paul Goodale.
Present.
Councillor Neil Hasty.
Present.
Yourself, Chairman, Madam Chairman.
Present.
And Vice Chairman, Councillor Judith Wellborn.
Present.
Also attending is Councillor Peter Watson. Are you there, Councillor Watson?
Present.
Thank you. Also the Leader of the Council and Portfolio Holder for Climate Change, Councillor Paul Skinner.
Present.
The Portfolio Holder for Operations, Councillor Yvonne Stevens.
Present.
The Monitoring Officer and Deputy Chief Executive for Place, Michelle Sachs.
Thank you, Jeanette. Present.
Thank you. The Assistant Director for Regulation and Lead Officer for this committee, Christian Allen.
Good evening, members.
Thank you. The Assistant Director for Operations, Victoria Burgess.
Hello, present, thanks.
The Operations Manager, Matt Fisher.
Present, Jeanette.
Thank you. The Climate Change and Environment Manager, Sarah Baker.
Yeah, present, hi.
And myself, Madam Chairman, the clerk for the committee, and that concludes the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. We'll now move to part one of this evening's agenda and address the preliminary items. The first one is to receive apologies for absence and notification of any substitution of members.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There are apologies for absence from Councillors David Brown, Martin Howard and Chelsea Trafford.
Thank you. Number two is to sign the minutes of the last meeting held on 3rd of November 2020. If any member who attended that meeting as a member of this committee wishes to challenge anything in minutes, please could they do so now?
Nobody's indicating, Madam.
Okay, as there are no comments, I take it I have your agreement to sign the minutes. Thank you very much, members. So it's to receive declarations of interest in respect of any item on the agenda. If anybody would like to raise their hands if we've got a declaration.
Nobody's indicating, Madam Chairman.
Members. Number four is to answer any written public questions. Are there any, Jeanette?
There are none, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. That concludes the preliminary items, and we will now move to part two of the agenda. Our first item this evening is the Twin Stream Recycling Collection report, starting on page 9 of the agenda. And we have Victoria Burgess with us, who will present this report, and Councillor Stevens, the portfolio holder, is also present. Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
Madam, sorry, Victoria, just to have some clarification from Madam Chairman, because I put my hands up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that. It's just a point of clarifications. The members of the committee, because we've seen Councillor Hastings and we have on our paper Councillor Andorian, is that she's replaced by Councillor Hastings, or Councillor Hastings is part of the committee?
Jeanette's put her hand up.
Two apologies, Madam Chairman. I'm sorry, I've just made you co-host now, so you will be able to see when members are indicating with the raised hand. Yeah. But also, I did omit to mention that Councillor Dorian confirmed today that Councillor Hasty is now the independent Group 2 member on this committee in her place. And she was going to attend as an observing non-committee member, but she gives her apologies. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Janet.
Okay, Councillor Daly, thank you very much for bringing that up. That makes it clear for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Victoria Burgess to present the twin stream recycling collection. There is no recommendations as such for this item. It is for the committee to discuss options and note the environmental and financial implications and anything for the portfolio holder to consider. Okay, Victoria, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So yeah, I guess this goes back to 2018 when the Lincolnshire Waste Partnership and the partners, of course, Boston are part of that, agreed the Lincolnshire Waste Management Strategy, which looked at how we can improve the collection and management of waste across the whole of Lincolnshire. And since then, there's been a plethora of other bits of legislation nationally. And it's really to try and understand why the recycling rate across the whole country is plateauing and how we can all do something to improve that and also improve the carbon impact of everything we do. So in 2019, Boston Borough Council stepped forward to undertake a trial with 2 other districts across Lincolnshire with the aim of improving the quality of the recycling we collect in the borough and across the county to try and capture more materials for recycling and also ensure that that we encourage behaviour change around how resources are used across the borough. So what the paper does is proposes that we extend the current trial that's taking place in just over 3,000 properties in Boston Borough Council. I think it's interesting to note that that's about 10% of the number of households that we have. But also this trial, we call it a trial, but it's actually been running now for probably about 18 months. And I think we can certainly say that that's now embedded in those 3,000 households that are continuing to use the trial now. So the proposal is that the trials are extended. You'll be aware that the trial is an additional bin, 240-litre bin, a purple bin, although in the rollout it's proposed that this will be a black bin with a purple lid. And what that does is takes paper and card away from the mixed recycling bin, the blue bin that everyone has now, and the mixed recycling continues to stay in the blue bin, and all the paper and card goes into the purple bin. And the point being then that what we're doing is really improving the quality of that paper and card and the ability of it then to be recycled again and again and again back into paper. The trial has proved to be successful in a number of ways. The amount of paper and card and mixed recycling that's been presented for recycling has increased. The contamination rate, which unfortunately we have across the whole of Lincolnshire from having a commingled collection, that currently stands at about 30%, but the trial area has shown that contamination is reduced right down to 17%, and that's really great. I think nationally the aim is to get to about 14%, so that is a really good outcome for that trial. I think the other point to note is that the trial has been a huge collaborative effort with all partners across Lincolnshire, not just the Borough Council officers and in the trial areas, all the districts and City of Lincoln Council have been involved in putting this together to be a success for the whole of the county council, because the aim is that it will be rolled out across the whole of Lincolnshire. And Boston, going first with the trial and the biggest amount of people in the trial, has gone, but it's named forward to be first in the rollout. So hence we sit here tonight. Just going back to what the actual collection is that where now your blue bin is collected once a fortnight, that will then be collected once every 4 weeks with your purple bin in between. So there's still the same amount of recycling collections, the same amount of residual waste collections, which is the green bin, but it's just what those vehicles, when they come on the rounds, they'll just empty a different bin. Where previously they were collecting a mixed recycling bin, the blue bin, now there'll be a paper and card only in that bin. So the same number of collections will continue as there are now. We obviously require across the borough about 31,000 new receptacles. The County Council is funding those for us, probably to a tune of around £500,000, I should think, or something like that, that will cost. There is concern about households that maybe can't accommodate a larger bin. In the trial area, there wasn't anybody that couldn't accommodate the 240 litre bin. But that may not happen everywhere. So what the County Council has done in the awarding of the tender is to make sure that we can have other options, different sizes of bins. And then there's a tender out at the minute for the off-taker of the paper and card, and that asks the off-taker for ideas of how we can help some of these households that are going to be hard to take part. But the default is that the 240 bin will be the bin that will go to everybody unless they're unable to accommodate it. And like I say, in the trial area, the 240 bin has proved very popular and not so much of a problem. The other thing that the trial showed was the amount of education that was required with those households, and I think it's really shown how we've changed behaviour of those residents that are taking part in the trial, and the results show how well they're doing in putting the right things in the right bin and getting the bins out on the right days. So yeah, the County Council is funding a team of education and engagement officers. The proposal is that they will come into Boston Borough, start working and engaging with members of the public. I'm sat here with my fingers crossed that you know, with social distancing and everything else that we can achieve that. The proposal is that the trial will be extended, I'm going to say around April, May time, and let's keep fingers crossed that that's something that can happen in terms of that real engagement with residents. The team will start working with our householders, and then they will work with our householders as the scheme is rolled out across all areas. And that team is funded by the County Council, and then the idea being then that team will then roll out around the other districts as the rollout continues there. But there will still be some support back for Boston Borough as that rolls forward. We know that communication is key. We know from some of the surveys that came back that there's some, whilst everyone in the trial area knows what needed to go in the paper and card bin, there's some confusion coming back from the survey of around what goes in the the recycling bin, your blue recycling bin now. So we know that we'll have to do some work with this team around that to make sure that everything in that blue bin is captured from both the refuse bin, the green bin now, to make sure that everything that can be recycled comes away from that green bin and into that new both the purple and the blue recycling bin. So that sounds really straightforward. It's not as straightforward as it sounds. There's a lot of work that's gone in with the Lincolnshire Waste Partnership members to get us to this position that we're in now. With the papers, there's something called a Teep Assessment. That's something that all waste collection authorities have to complete when we look at changing the way we collect our recycling. That follows a consistent process of doing that assessment, and that has shown that rolling out the twin stream collection is compatible with Teep, so that's a good thing. So that's something that as we move forward, that will need to be noted as the council's Teep assessment. We also have a very highly valued and a good commercial waste collection service, about 400 and odd, just over 400 customers. And what we need to make sure is that those customers aren't detrimented by the new service, so they will be able to take part as well. And actually that will help them, because it will help them also meet the requirements that are coming from the Environment Bill 2020 that's just moving its way through Parliament now. So moving forward, what the government will be looking for through that Environment Bill is that businesses start to have their recycling collected in the same way as households is collected as well. And it makes sure that all commercial businesses, they're all producing and separating recycling. And it's all about capturing and recycling more as we possibly can. So we will bring the commercial customers into that service as well. The current way that the trial is running operationally, that will be expanded. So at the minute in the trial area, there isn't any side waste collected, and the proposal is that that will continue across the rest of the borough as that's rolled out. Side waste goes against waste minimisation, but it also skews to some degree what the recycling rate can be, because you start to add more weight into the residual, into your green bin, and that's what we don't want. We need to collect recycling with a bit of residual waste, not collect more residual waste. But again, there's an engagement and the engagement and enforcement education officers. They will be there to support and help through that change as well. Just touching on enforcement, the current way that the council enforces, so very much around education, very much around engagement, and really enforcement being the last point really in trying to make that change in behaviour. That will then be rolled out across all the district, but it's pretty much the same type of enforcement that happens now, where it really is enforcement is the last resort. It's all about the education and trying to change behaviour positively first. So there is a as it stands, there is a cost to the council. It's a difficult one to quantify, because how do you put a figure on how many bins will need replaced in a given year? So what the county council has said is that they will meet the cost of 1% of the amount of the bins that they give us at the start of the rollout. So that works out around 300 bins, if you like. But if we look at replacement bins last year from our recycling bins, we've replaced about 460. So there may be a shortfall in the capital cost of replacing those bins. It may be that we don't get so much damage because the bins aren't lifted as much. But that's just a figure that we just have to give our best estimate at what that could be. And that's what the figure in the report is. And there's also a capital cost to provide for commercial customer bins as well, because it's slightly out of what the current budget is projecting. So in a nutshell, that is the proposal, so that the trial in place now is rolled out from around April time, 6 months over 6 months, and we get it embedded, and then it'll pass to North Kesteven District Council, who I'm sure will be learning from what the first council has learned as it progresses.
Okay, thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
I'd now like to open up debate to members, unless Councillor Stevens wants to add something before we go ahead.
Yes, I would. Thank you. I'm very much in favour and support this, but I've got a couple of caveats where I think we need clarification. As Victoria said, there is a cost for replacement bins. Now, this I'm not happy about. If the county council, who are insisting that we do this, are paying for the bins initially, and they are going to take the profit, the surplus from selling the paper and card, then, and that's going to be an ongoing thing. So even though the initial cost, it's like a business, the initial cost will be covered by the future. I'm not happy that we have to pay anything, as Victoria is aware. The county council have offered us 1%, but having had discussions with my opposite number, Martin in East Lindsey, we've come up with a figure of 3%. And I think if Victoria would go back and speak to John Coates and say, this is what, I mean, obviously it's down to this committee and it's not down to me, but these are just my suggestions. If Victoria would to go back and speak to John Coates and ask for 3% and probably play hardball, then I think we'd be better placed, because this is what Martin Foster thought he needed. And even if we don't need as much as that, we can give back. We don't have to be making a profit from them. So that is one of my concerns. My other concern is, as Victoria's mentioned, the size of the bin. For the Victorian terraces that we have in Boston, possibly more than in East Lindsey, simply because of it being a town, and East Lindsey is so sparsely populated and there's so much more space. So that is a concern of mine. I personally would prefer a bag rather than, and I could keep it in my utility rather than having a bin, but I'll accept what comes. My third concern, going on to page 50, is in the enforcement. And I think the enforcement, because even though I've asked for confirmation that all bins and side waste starting this year would be collected, I've asked for that information to come to me. I've had various emails, but I've not had that confirmation. And guess what? I found out today that there's a lot of complaints because bins and side waste have been missed. And therefore, I'm not happy that we're not dealing with the problem. And I think, going back to what Victoria said, it's training. It's not only training of the residents for dealing with things, but I think we need to start training with our staff, because this is going to be an ongoing thing. We've had the mess up with the stickers, and my head is sore from the amount of people that's hit me over the top of the head with their sticks because they're unhappy that the bins wasn't collected or the information wasn't there. So I think it's got to be so much training to the refuse staff, customer care, their managers to do toolbox training of, and especially when you've got agency staff working. And if we don't get this, we're going to stay in this mess and this mither, and it's just not good enough. I'm not happy at all. And I can understand why my fellow councillors have been unhappy. I've just gone having a rant there, Madam Chairman, I'm sorry. But I do feel very strongly about this. Training is the issue, and it's staff training. And that would then make me feel more comfortable with the enforcement, the draft enforcement policy. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stevens. So I open it up to debate, and I see Councillor Evans has got her hand up. Councillor Evans.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to support Councillor Stevens, really. I think she's made loads of really valid points. I think it's been a disaster, the bin changes, including myself. So I think we can learn from this and it not happen next time. You know, I know it's a different, unusual circumstances. And also there seems to be an exceptionally long time till I can put my green bin out again. I don't know why that's never happened before, but I'm not sure. But anyway, my concerns are the fact that we're trying to make Boston look attractive because it's such a beautiful historical town. And then you go down some of the roads and it's just a sea of bins. And so all these beautiful terraced houses, particularly, are covered with bins, and you can't walk down the path because it's just and some of them actually come through the house, which I feel so sorry for the people that have so many bins. I'm slightly worried about moving the blue bin to sort of monthly. I'd have to be convinced that would work. And my other issue is I've never put side waste out, but since lockdown, I find the amount of recycling, the amount of rubbish is because I'm at home for every meal. So I'm making meals every lunchtime, whereas I would have been out at work. So the amount of waste you create, as much as you try not to, is doubled, not because people are necessarily trying to create more rubbish, just that the nature of this year has meant that there's been a lot more people at home creating a lot more things. And I hate the colour purple because I think that distracts from the houses as well. Everywhere I've been that have got green bins, the green bins seem to blend in. They blend in with the hedge and they don't stand out as much. Black doesn't stand out as much. I think green's the best, but I have seen towns that have all green bins and different colour lids. But I think the purple is quite a statement colour, and I'd rather we didn't notice our rubbish. I'd rather it was discreet. But yes, I just want to fully support Councillor Stevens. I think she's definitely, well, possibly had a tough time through no fault of her own, and just to thank her for the good work, really. And thank you to the speaker. And I'll disappear for now. Thank you.
Can I cut that, Judy, please?
You can, Councillor Stevens, yes.
Thank you. It's just to answer Debbie, because your bins will be collected. If you put your bins out on your normal bin day, I believe you might be a Monday, put your bins out on your normal bin day, they will be collected. You've all had an email from me today to make you aware that the What's My Bin Day has been taken down because we've got some technical issues. But everything is managed and going forward exactly as you'd expect it to. There's no glitch in the system. Thank you.
And the good thing is, Councillor Evans, that it's only going to be the lid that's going to be purple, so the rest of it's going to be black. So that will be quite good.
I'll try and manage with the lid, just the lid.
Next, I think, was Councillor Ashton. Would you like to speak, Councillor Ashton?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. No, I was just going to ask, obviously, thank you, Yvonne, for explaining your thoughts from the portfolio perspective and having a little personal familiarity of how these things work. I'd just be interested in to know what the views of the Lincolnshire Waste Partnership are, and other councils around Lincolnshire that are looking at this. The challenges that we have in Boston with terraced housing, I'm sure will be on the radar of portfolio holders across Lincolnshire. and as well as the other concerns, and I just wonder what the consensus is within the Lincolnshire Waste Partnership on how these things are going to be tackled. I mean, I appreciate we are living with the consequences of the separation of responsibility between waste collection authorities, which are ourselves, and waste disposal authorities, which are of course the upper tier county councils. And the fact that we were all about 25 years ago left entirely to our own devices, how we went down this journey. And as I say, I have some familiarity with the challenge that there is across the whole of Lincolnshire, and this is probably the first time. We are only just beginning to move towards a single approach across Lincolnshire, and I know we're a long way off of that in some areas, and this is a first positive step in the right direction, because the idea of having 7 different collection authorities all doing their own thing, and then trying to process that waste, it's a recipe for making it very complicated and very expensive. And I'd be very interested to know how South Holland are going to cope when they try processing thousands upon thousands upon thousands of bags of paper, which they've got to empty because the paper mills don't like plastic bags. So these are challenges that I know other authorities are going to have, and I'm very proud actually that Boston is in the vanguard of this. There are always going to be teething troubles. There's always going to be people that are going to wail like banshees that their bin didn't get emptied this week and it's a major crisis and they don't know how they're going to cope. But at the end of the day, we are in the vanguard of this, and these teething troubles are to be expected. And I'm pleased to hear that there's going to be the attention and the focus on educating people just to guide them through the process. And I'm very pleased with the briefings that we had. It seemed an awful long time ago now in the municipal buildings to report on the trial in its first phase. And I was say that came through there, that the effort in guiding and educating users of these bins made a huge difference to contamination rates and their efficiency. So I think it's genuinely, I feel it's a good thing. I'm fairly comfortable if we can get a better deal on the number of spare bins that we can get out of this, then power to the portfolio holder's elbow in that. But the fact that we are not having to buy £500,000 worth of bin to start with, I think is a huge positive step in the right direction. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine the last time when we bought the blue bins, and when back in about 1996 we bought the green ones, we had to stump up the whole cost of those ourselves. And it's pleasing that there is assistance with this. Obviously, there's going to be a saving to the county council, and at the end of the day, when our council tax bills land on our resident doormats, whether it's our bit of the council tax that is being eased or whether it's the county council's liabilities, at the end of the day, it's all public money. It all comes from the same place, and it all goes on funding services that people expect. And really, I don't think that's it. I hope that wouldn't be a deal breaker, because as I say, we are still getting the bulk of this funded ourselves. And it's an interesting argument, and I think it has merit, that this isn't an additional collection, as it were. It's effectively fitting in. It's the same number of bin movements per year, and it would be really interesting after the end of that first year whether the number of whether we're replacing the same number of bins overall, we're just replacing a few black and purple ones instead of blue ones. You know, the number of bin miles per year isn't going to go up as a consequence of this. So hopefully it should it shouldn't be too much of an impact. But by and large, clearly we know where the pinch points are going to be on this, and I look forward to it being introduced. It's absolutely the right thing to do, and were we designing a waste collection and disposal system from scratch, we'd probably have done this 25 years ago, and we'd have all have done it, and it would all have been done marvelous and efficiently and planned out from the beginning. But everyone is doing a marvelous job with what I know certainly is a very, very complicated system.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aston. Next, Councillor Goodell.
Jim, you caught me asleep there.
I was going to say, I hope you're all right.
I thought it was a bit further down the list.
I think it's you, then Councillor Danny, then Councillor Haskell.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, one of the, obviously the problems that we've just had over this Christmas period haven't been handled very well, I don't think, but we have had lots of problems, and not having stickers on bins was a big shot ourselves in the foot big time there, I think. But I've been part of this trial since it started. I'm probably fortunate or unfortunate, along with the Mayor, Councillor Danny, we've both been part of this trial. And I find it is pretty good. But then again, I have room for the bins. I know a lot of people in the ward I represent don't have room for the bins, and I'm surprised in the fact that we said that there's been no problem with people with these rather large bins, because I've had lots of complaints about people having nowhere to put them and leaving them on the footpath and just leaving them there all the time. But they've still took part in the trial. So I am actually, I am wondering what arrangements are to be made for people who don't have room for the bin. I also, there are obviously lots of places that didn't take part in the trial. That's at HMOs. Some HMOs didn't take part in the trial. Some multi-property parts didn't take part in the trial. So there are lots of people that didn't take part in the trial. I mean, there's a lot of houses near me. I mean, I have lots of on my ward. There are quite a few HMOs and quite a few privately rented houses with rather more people in them than there should be. And some, I mean, there's a house across the road from me that it's not actually an HMO, but it's got 4 green bins and 4 blue bins. So it will now have 4 purple and black bins, all on a drive. So that's 12 bins would be on one property's front. And I'm not quite sure how we can how they can accommodate that. Equally down Sydney Street, which is there are some terrace housing, semi-detached houses. They have small front yards, and they have some of those have 4 and 5 bins in the front now. And as has been said before, the street where you can't walk down the path on collection day, but that's another issue. That's just part of the collection process. So I am concerned with what we're actually going to provide for people that don't have room to accommodate these bins, and what we are actually going to do with the HMOs, or the registered ones. But obviously there are far more houses that have lots more people in that are not actually registered as HMOs within the town, which we probably all, well, we do know about, but they don't fall into the category of being an HMO, but they still have lots of overcrowding and lots of rubbish. I'm concerned about not collecting any side waste, because obviously the area I represent has been part of the trial area. Strangely enough, we have the highest incidence of fly tipping as well. I'm not sure that's because we're not collecting side waste. Over the Christmas period, side waste has been collected because of the problems we had with the obviously with the collection of the bins initially, and the guys did collect all the sideways. And I have to say, the fly tip team have been brilliant in my area, collecting every time it's reported, and as often as I can report them and other people report them, they are collecting them, and I can't thank them enough. I really can't. I mean, I think the work they put in, the team has been absolutely brilliant and continues to be. But I mean, yesterday they cleared Carlton Granville Street, a big pile of black bags piled on the path. Yesterday they cleared it. Today they're back. Now, is that linked because there's no sideways collected? Is it for another reason? I don't know. But I just wonder if we did collect sideways, whether that may limit the amount of black bags that keep appearing on the pavements in around bins and other sort of places where they seem to congregate. I mean, the place in Granville Street is the same place. It's every week. It's every day. As soon as our guys come and clear it, which I can't thank them enough for, it's not a pleasant task, and I know they have to look through it as well, which is an even less pleasant task. But the next day they're back again. Whether that's part of this, I don't know, but it's certainly something that we need to get on top of. So I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned the fact that when we actually start this rollout, as happened last time, that if somebody contaminates their bin, we're not going to empty it. And we're going to tell them that there's something wrong with it, which is fair enough, and that it's going to, and it will be empty when they remove whatever contaminant they've put in it. I actually know that there are some bins in my ward that have actually still been there from the first week. They have never ever been emptied, simply because they've been totally contaminated. Now, my advice to people is bung it in the green bin. What can I say? Because they get, if they don't, the fact that some things are, although I'm all, we do need to educate people, and I am in favour of us doing this. I have to say, because at the end of the day, I was actually surprised how much paper and card we actually get in our purple bin. I have to say that our purple bin is always the fullest bin that we have. On collection day, it's fuller than the blue bin. Obviously the green bin's empty once a fortnight, so that would be a lot fuller, but it is the fullest bin we have. But equally, as far as when we talk about damage of bins, I would say that the blue bins will probably suffer more of a problem, because obviously when they are empty once a month, they will actually be heavier, because the lighter parts that used to fill them, i.e. paper and card, won't be in them anymore. Just be more bottles and cans, plastics, and stuff. So they'll probably be heavier. But I am concerned that we're not, when we actually do the education, obviously it's going to be town-wide. So there are going to be lots and lots of problems. And the team, when they actually did the walk rounds around my ward, or around the town when it was introduced, and the other wards when it was introduced, I mean, they did a great job in communicating with people what to put in. But there was for a short time, there was considerable confusion, but it's all worked out in the end, although we still do get contamination now. And now and again, not very often, I have to say, but now and again. So there is that. But I mean, I do think we do need to make sure that we actually are collecting stuff, whether it's contaminated or not, that we actually find a way. I agree, of communicating and educating people what bins to use, but also not just to leave stuff. In the end, we do need to collect it, whether it goes in general recycling or whatever. But I do support it. I don't support the not collecting of the side waste, especially in the interim, the start of it, because I think it will lead to more problems than we actually will solve. My other question is, we're going to change the bins. I mean, I have a purple bin along with a few other people, and it says it will be. What will actually happen with that purple bin? Is it going to be returned? Are you going to collect it? Am I going to keep it? Or am I going to just keep it as a bin and use it instead of, or will I get a black one with the purple lid? And if I do, what you're doing, I just wonder what's going to happen with that one. So I am sort of, I have a lot of concerns, not all summed up there, but as a general rule, I do support it's something that we do need to do. We do need to get on top of recycling. We do need to sort out the recycling and our residual waste. Obviously, we can't keep poisoning the earth as we have been doing, and I think everybody knows that. But I have some problems, some concerns with the way which we do some of the recycling. Some of it's probably more polluting than the polluting other B, but that's a different story. But I am as a general rule, I do support it, but I do think that if we don't collect the side waste initially, I think that needs to be something that should be phased out. If we're going to get rid of it, it needs to be phased out, because I do feel that will actually lead to more fly tipping than we've actually already got. Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. I might want to come back if that's okay.
Okay, Councillor Goodall. I think Councillor Stevens wanted to come back to you on some of your comments. So, yeah,
I did, if I might, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Paul was saying, Councillor Goodale was saying about his concerns about side waste if we don't allow it. But at the moment, we do allow it. And he's telling us that there's fly tip of bags left. So I don't think it's the householders that are caring. I think it's the ones that don't care. Maybe and again, I don't know, but maybe as he said, the overcrowded houses that are just dumping it. I don't know. But if we are going to be in line with the rest of Lincolnshire, we have got to bite the bullet and go forward with this and be treated exactly the same. Otherwise, they will say we're being spoilt, and that's not the way we want to be seen. We want to be seen to be able to bite the bullet and get on with it. The other thing I wanted to say was, I'm sure Victoria will answer this. So this is why I'm bringing her up to it. The purple bin, will Paul keep it, or will it be exchanged for a black one with a purple lid? So over to you, Victoria.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Victoria, do you want to come in on that one?
Hi. I mean, ideally, they'd all be replaced, and so everyone would have the same, because the whole point is that we try and get some consistency. But well, I'll take that back and then discuss that with officers, to be honest, because we just need to, if that was to happen, we just need to think about what we would do with those, because at the end of the day, there's what, 3,000 out in Boston, and there's what, 1,500 out in North Kesteven at the minute. So certainly I'll take that away. Yeah.
That'd be a shameful waste of what is a plastic bin, wouldn't it, really? That's not very environmentally friendly to swap them out.
That's right, yeah.
Just a comment on that one. Right, if that's it, Councillor Danny, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yeah, well.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Stevens, for your comments. Yes, our staff as well need to be educated. We have to compromise on certain issues, and that's the way for me to go forward, because I've been called to some houses in Fanside, and their complaints were simple. My bin wasn't collected, the purple one. Why? Because they found one bag which has a little bit of oil on it. They left the bin. In my opinion, I will take that bag and put it in a green one and take the bin and empty it. So we don't have to create that kind of aggression between the residents and the workers and the Boston Borough Council, which is I support you. Education is essential. I think we should compromise on certain situations. The cost of this trail and the impact of it on the BBC, I think, since we are just collectors of the council tax for Lincoln, I think this should, cover the cost of this trail. We shouldn't do that. That's my opinion. The other thing, we are talking about replacing the purple bins with the black ones. Well, it strikes my mind straight away from point of view of health and safety. Since our lights are switched off at night, somebody can pull a bin to the middle of the road, a black bin, you will not be able to see it with dark streets. And I think it can cause harm to any one of us because you will not see it. That's the truth, because we haven't got no lights, the bin is there. And I think we should have thought about the color. In my opinion, the color probably better to have it brighter so people can see it at night and can see it in the daytime. If somebody coming on a pavement, as Councillor Goodale stated, for example, just Sydney Street, people, they don't have space for bins. And it happens to me in winter when I go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, you really have to go to the road. If you don't notice the bins, even if they're green or purple, when it's dark, it's hard to see them, especially there is cars and there is hedges. So it limits, you know, your sight. That's one thing. The color, I think it's not right for me. That's my opinion. And I think I was going to ask Victoria, which is she, I mean, I thank her a lot for her presentation. Will we include some Europeans in this trail? And why I'm saying that? Because we're going to come back to the point where we found a lot of bin bags and other bags just next to these street bins. And because they get collected, and I thank the team of Boston and for their hard work, and I can thank them a lot, because last time, yes, I moaned about the cleaning and the tipping, and within a day things were clean and spot on, but within another 2 days the same thing come back. And I think there is one reason for that. I think most of the European citizens living here, or the newcomers, they think by doing that and putting them on the side and they're collected, they think they're doing a good job, they're not harming anyone, which is, I think, is wrong. They have to know, and they have to be educated that that's wrong. That's called fly tipping. And I think most of them, they don't know. In this case, I think we should work with the letting agencies and estate agencies, because they're the ones who are in the middle between us and the residents. So if we can make sure that the letting agencies and the estate agents has the right information, the right papers to pass it to their lodgers, that will be, I think, of a benefit to us all, because I can assure you that a lot of them, they don't understand the system. You come, you stay with the family, and the house probably hosts 12 people, and they're gonna produce a lot of rubbish. And most of them, they take their bin bags, they use the bins, and then whatever is left is put on the street. And when it's collected, it's automatically, there is no harm. And I think this is one of the issues. The other thing I want to talk about, which is probably some of my colleagues here, they don't know, that we have around over 180 HMOs. And some of them, they have around 10 people living in. So 10 people produce your rubbish on a daily basis. Let's not forget that some of them did drink, and they will have bags of cans by each bins in the street or on the road, and it's just getting out of control. So these HMOs, I don't know how many bins they have, or as Councillor Goodale stated, in Sydney Street, there is one with 4 green, 4 blue, 4 purple, and I think that's 12 bins on one line. There is 10 people living. So the rubbish gets accumulated on 2 weeks' time. They don't have space. They take their bin bags, whatever they have, there, and they put it on the street. Therefore, they go back to their place thinking it's going to be collected. Yes, we complain, we moan, and we call, and things are done. As I say, it's credit to the Boston environment and the cleaning department. They're doing a good job, but it's getting out of hands. Therefore, we have to find a strategy of how we can deal with this issue. And I think, as a suggestion, we have to deal with the letting agency straight. We have to talk to them, and we have to gather as much information as we can, and how many people are living in houses, and how we can educate these people. I mean, it's not enough just to print a paper in Romanian language or Bulgarian or Lithuanian or Latvian. It's not enough. I think these people, they have to understand also that there is law and there is penalties to follow that. And I will stop for now, Madam Chairman. If I can come back, that will be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, Victoria, did you want to come in on that at all?
Sorry, yes, thanks. Yeah. we've talked about, you know, the need for all the information that goes out to be in different languages. Absolutely, because every member of the community needs to take part in this and should take part in this, because it's something that we all, you know, have a responsibility. And you'll be talking, you know, with Sarah after about climate change and the carbon impact, but we all have a responsibility to try and reduce the negative impact that we all make on the environment. So every community needs to be included in this, and what we will do is work hard to make sure that they all are. We've talked about having different language speakers. Certainly some of our crews speak different languages. So I think that all that helps, and it's all that wider engagement to make sure that everyone is engaged and part of this as well. And I suppose the point being that you know, the fly tipping, the waste on the street is happening regardless. So it's something that obviously, regardless of what happens with the twin stream recycling service, it's something that we need to get hold of. And we are also aware of you know, housing multiple occupation and the needs there, and that's something again that we've talked about, how we're going to address that. So, you know, thanks for raising those issues. They are on the list. There's a number of things that we know that we're going to have to look at. But like I say, all members of the community need to embrace what we do and do their bit, really. And what we need to do is give them the tools to make sure that they can do that successfully. And I'm sure the other districts who come after will be learning, will be really learning from what we do here.
Okay, thank you very much. And very patiently waiting is Councillor Hastie. Thank you very much, Councillor Hastie.
Councillor Goodhell has covered most of the things I wanted to say about HMOs, but I would just like to say that I support the Purple Bin initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Hastie. So that's nice to hear. Thank you. I think Councillor Ashton wanted to come back in.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Very briefly to say, and incredibly grateful to Victoria for picking up on the point that Councillor Danny was making there. I was simply going to say that this does feel like the issue with HMOs, the issues with smaller properties. It's already something which is on the radar, and I think Councillor Danny though makes a entirely valid point. That this is something that could well be a cause of considerable concern and distress to a great number of people if it's handled without care and sensitivity. But I do have confidence that it will be handled with care and sensitivity, and I hope a degree of tolerance and forbearance in the initial stages as this goes forward. But fundamentally, moving to a two-stream system is, I think, a separate question, almost to the work that we need to do to deal with the issues that we already have. Just interestingly, on smaller properties, I'm aware that I don't have any of the properties, this type of property in the ward that I represent. So if we do this here and I'm not aware of it, then I'll happily stand corrected. But I certainly know in South Kesterton, where there are existing very smaller properties without any room to store a bin, they do provide bin bags for those, but it's only in very rare circumstances and by special request. But they are available as an option for particularly narrow terrace properties and so on, where there just isn't room to keep bins or a bin. And just to hopefully reassure Councillor Danny in respect of the colour of these bins. I mean, very interesting that we've got the blue bins that you can see for miles in Boston. I think the purple one would be no worse. It certainly wouldn't be any better. I don't think it'd be any worse than the blue ones. But black with a purple lid is fine by me. It doesn't really make an awful lot of difference. But I would just reassure Councillor Danny that there are other authorities around the country, and I think certainly in and our neighbours with East Lindsey and up in Lincoln and others, there black bins are already in use, and an accident and emergency haven't noticed an uptick in people falling over them in the dead of night. But I don't think we can help that. So I'll just leave that there. It would just be very interesting to observe this as we go forward. I mean, if we do have issues with, no, I'll end that there. I'll just be going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ashton. Councillor Bedford, you would like to come in on this debate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Well, obviously, I fully support the fact that this comes in. When the green bins came in, Coastal was the first district to actually have them in, or the first ward, should I say. I don't think anybody has ever regretted the fact that we've gone down the bin line, and when you ride along the streets of South Holland and see all those horrible bags laying everywhere, all eyes turn around and say, thank goodness we live in Boston. But on the educational bit, I mean, this last week or two has been very, very obvious that people putting cardboard and so on in blue bins, they're just not breaking it down. They get a massive box and just wedge it in, and that fills the bin. The education should be that you break the cardboard down to fit the bin. That way around, you get about 10 times or more in than what you do now. That's my point on that. The other thing, while the portfolio holder is here, I wonder whether or not she can tell me whether or not she's got costs sorted out yet for brown bins for 21-22. And also, are the new trucks anywhere on the horizon yet? Because I haven't seen any yet out this way on. Thank you.
So, Councillor Bedford. Councillor Stevens, can you come in?
Well, as far as the costs for the green bins, Councillor Bedford's had his reply, and I'll have to stick by that reply. But if he could just repeat his earlier question, please, the other one, I didn't quite get that, my hearing.
Which is the new trucks anywhere near arriving yet? Because I haven't seen any of them.
Yes, they are. The SFS, who's going to be doing the servicing of the trucks, are operating from Fen Road, where we used to operate from, and yes, they are taking delivery of all the trucks simply because St John's depot isn't licensed to have that many trucks in the yard. But yes, we are taking delivery as we speak.
Thank you. And just the other point, probably on a management issue, I'm sorry that staff have been criticised tonight by you on a live meeting. You are the portfolio holder, and surely to goodness, if you've got issues on staff training, that should be done directly between yourself and management.
For a future development, not criticising staff tonight, staff training for a future development, especially as we go forward, Councillor Bedford. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think Councillor Danny wanted to come back in.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just 2 points, which is just as an information and an experience that I would like to share with my colleague councillors. When we did the trial for the, I think, purple bin and the recycling bins at Fenside, because Fenside was the first, and I will not hide this truth from anyone being here with us today. I went to the Fenside community center when we had the trail, and believe you in me, we had only 6 people attending the training between 9 o'clock in the morning to 8. So a lot of people, they don't attend these trails, and a lot of people, they ignore them. And I think we should probably come with a strategy how to get this information to the public in the best way we can. That's right. There is other thing. I was watching a program last time, and I think they tried it in Kent. You know, they fitted these remote cameras, which is you can put in the wilderness or wherever you want, and they have like a long shelf life of their batteries. It's up to a month. You don't have to do videos, but they take pictures. If we can, they're not very expensive. It's easy to use. It's easy to take off and to connect to a computer, and it shows you the pictures, cars registrations, and everything. So that one, if we can probably have some and put them in the hot areas where there is a lot of fly tipping. You can put it on a light post, you can put it in a tree, and you attach it, and it can be there for a month. And I think we can extract the information from it on daily basis, on weekly basis, on monthly basis. And they're very, very good, and they're working very good in Kent. And I think we can probably learn from that experience. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stevens, did you want to come in on that?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Fabulous ideas, Anton, fabulous. The only thing at this moment, we're working towards getting Lincolnshire County Council to agree to let us use their lamp posts to put our cameras on. But at this moment, they're saying no. So, but it is something that's happening. Even though you're not hearing about it on the surface, what's happening, we're like the swan. We're sailing along nicely, but madly busy underneath. But this is something that we are working at, but good idea as well.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. I really support you in what you do. I mean, never mind, sometimes people moan, but I do support our team, and I do support you in what you're doing. It's great what you're doing. We need to educate people. We need to inform people in the best way. I'm not sure, but these cameras can be on trees as well. So I don't know who the trees belong to, but they can be installed anywhere we want. It's a small box, it's strong, can be attached, and it's perfect.
I'm sure Victoria will make a note of that.
If you can. Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Thank you.
Councillor Wellborn, you'd like to come in on the debate?
Yes, I would actually. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yeah.
Basically, I fully support this, and as I say, I actually moved into the coastal area when the green bins were first rolled out, and I was coming from the town to the old-fashioned dustbin to something which held twice as much with a lot of ease was fantastic for me. And yes, I also have a family that live on Fenside, and I know the trials that it had with the new purple bin. And a lot of it was because a lot of the bins were left outside of properties early in the morning, and people walking past on the way to work, lift a lid up, chuck something in, contaminated. Wasn't always their fault. We hope we can get this sorted, and I dearly think we can. Yes, I do think the cameras will be brilliant when we can get them up and running. But my other point is with a lot of it, the education. Unfortunately, with the HMOs, yes, we can let them know, but they change hands so quickly. Every 12 weeks, there's a new lot of people in there. So every 12 weeks, we've got to go back and re-educate people or landlords. And I think this is going to be the difficult thing. I still think it is a difficult thing on that area all over town, basically. But I think we can get there. But I think videos, and obviously I'm not trying to belittle people, but years ago they had the little people on little videos where they put them out. No voice, just videos with sort of a colour bin, a little person showing what rubbish went in what. And I think somehow if we put those up on Facebook, because a lot of the foreigners do use Facebook, which I found out, it would be a simple explanation for a lot of them. And also it could be something that is put out every so many weeks so that it's followed up on a regular basis so they know what's happening. But yes, I fully support it. And thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Councillor Wellborn. Okay, I would just like, if there's nobody else wanting to say anything, I would just like to have my 10 pence worth, for what it's worth. I'm pleased that we're the trial area, because again, it shows that Boston's really keen to get in on the start of things, which is really, really good. And I'd like to thank the officers for really grasping the nettle on this. It's fantastic. Was again about the education, we do need to get the education right on this, and pictorial things are really good. It negates any language problems if you've got a picture of what goes in, and it also as well with getting the education across, we've got to remember that not everybody uses a computer, not everybody does Facebook. So we've got to think of covering the non-techies, as I would call them, sort of thing, to make sure that everybody is included in the education as well. I don't know. I think Councillor Noble came up with the idea of sort of like the bins having stickers on them as to what goes in them. So I don't know if that's anything that could be done before the bins go out. I don't know if that's anything that could help. Also, I'm not particularly happy that we haven't nailed down the fact that, again, other people have mentioned about the people not being able to accommodate the 240 litre bin, especially the terraced houses. My suggestion, and I think I've floated this with Victoria and the portfolio holder, would they be able to provide a communal bin, and to get round anybody chucking anything into it? It could be encased in sort of a fence or something like that, and there could be a combination lock on it for residents to have the combination to get in to use it. That might be something that streets might like to be offered if we think that's a possibility. I don't know what the possibility that is, but it's just something that I was thinking of, if that would help. Personally, I can accommodate another bin on my property, but I could understand how annoying it is if it fills up the whole of your backyard, and you want to sit out not looking at bins all day. So I just wonder what the thoughts of that. And I fully support the fact that it would be nicer if we could cover fully, get the cost of the replacement bins fully covered. The 1% doesn't seem to cut the mustard. Probably near the 3%, as is mentioned, would be really good. If we could go back to the negotiating table on that, that would be fantastic. I do see that, Victoria, did you want to come in on any of my comments, or?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few. If you want me to just go through, and there was some that were asked from the start. Is that all right? I promise I won't go on. I go on forever.
That's okay. I see 3 more people wanting to speak again. So.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Right. Well, you can answer my questions if you like.
Okay. Sorry. So yeah, I think the pictorial side has to be the way forward, and we try to do that with the new design of there's a bin now, and we put pictures in there of what can go in as opposed to words, and the whole point about that is to make it much more easier to see what can and can't go in. Mm-hmm. The communal bin, I think, as part of the procurement process, there are larger bins in there, and that's something we can look at. Certainly in East Lindsey, we use communal bins for HMOs and other housing such like that. So certainly, I think that's something that we will be looking at. I mean, the lock on it. Well, let's a good idea, and hopefully people wouldn't. I can just see forgetting the number and whatnot. But anyway, with something maybe we can have a look at. And certainly I'll take. I will take that. I've noted your comments about covering the cost of these bins, and I'll certainly take that back.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. I know there are 3 hands up. I don't know what particular order they count. I'll go for Councillor Goodale first, because he did say he wanted to come back in, and Councillor Danny has spoken more than once. So I'll go for Councillor Goodale next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was just really going to support you on your larger bin idea, which I think is a very good. It's something I was going to come back on and mention, that maybe we could look at actually having larger bins and maybe more facilities for for streets to have like a collection site rather than extra bins everywhere. I would also like the county council, since we're talking about recycling and it does fit in with this, between us and the county council, if it could be done as part of this scheme on trial, if you like, to actually the bring sites which we have are somewhat abused, as we all know. But I just wonder whether we can actually look at having some managed sites where some managed bring sites. I know we have the waste recycling station out down Marsh Lane, but we do seem to have a lot of problems with the bring sites which we have, which are used for the purpose other than what they were actually designed. I don't know how we get around that. I mean, obviously the easiest way is to get rid of the bring sites, but I don't think that's the way forward. But obviously, if we have total recycling, then you would argue that, I suppose it could be argued, there is no need for them. But I think if we're going to have them, they should be managed, and maybe they could be done on a rotating basis, possibly. There was somebody did suggest to me that we actually went back to our old way of collecting extra stuff that people have, as there's going to be no side waste, in sort of an ad hoc collections every now and again to do different things. But I mean, obviously the thing with the side waste, for especially if it's for paper, obviously bags, it can be contaminated with wet, so it makes it sort of not a lot of good. So it just has to go to back to the problem we have already. So I have a problem with that, but I do think this collection from houses that can't really accommodate bins is a problem. And I think the way we're actually going about it at the minute, you will have one and you will use it or we will fine you. I think that's a little bit draconian, a little bit heavy-handed for what we're trying to achieve. I mean, I did actually initially that people had the option whether they actually wanted to partake or not, because obviously a willing participant, it would guarantee far more a better recycled material. And I do honestly think that most people would actually volunteer to take part, but it would actually also help people where they don't have room, not to feel obliged to have this forced on them. So I do think we do need to look at that, and I do support your idea of probably a communal bin. I don't know how that would be practical, but I would support that idea. I think it's a very good idea, and we do need to look at as many ways as possible of assisting the residents that we have. So I support you in that. I think that's a very good idea. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you for your support, Councillor Goodall. Councillor Dunny, do you want to come in quickly?
I will let Councillor Rush as an observer. He was waiting. I spoke only 2 times, so I will allow Councillor Rush before me if he doesn't mind.
You want to go ahead because you're a committee member, and then I do see Councillor Rush.
Okay, that's fine.
I will bring you in.
If you insist, Madam Chairman. It's just 2 points. It's just one is to reply on Councillor Wellborn. When she talks about how we can educate people, since the flow and the change of tenancy, it's so quick. I totally agree, but I think we have to come in terms that the letting agencies and the landlords who have a portfolio of more than 5 houses to let, we have to talk to them seriously, and we have to make them aware that when they change, tenant, it's like, for example, they do in hotels. When you go to certain hotels, you have this A4 paper behind the door telling you what to do, what's your right and what you cannot do, which is people, they read it most of the time to protect themselves. Maybe we can do that in the HMOs or houses, which is they have more people in their own language. That's one thing. Secondly, it's just an idea, which is I would like to suggest to our committee today, is because we want to educate people, why not make leaflets and issue leaflets and put them in these Eastern European shops, and each bag, when they do their shopping, give them a leaflet with the bag, because most of the bags, again, you see outside, there is black bin bags and there is a lot of blue bags with a lot of bottles, a lot of tins, a lot of paper. So if we can give them a leaflet with each shopping from this Eastern European shopping, I think they may get the idea and they will start understanding. It's just how point of view here is just how to have this liaison with the other ward. We have to reach them. We have to reach them as much as we can, and that's just great ideas. Maybe Victoria will approve it, or it's up to you guys. Thank you, Madam Chairman, for allowing me to talk. Now I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Councillor Danny. Thank you for your suggestion. Okay, so thank you, Councillor Rush, for observing our meeting. Would you like to make a comment?
If I can get my machine to work, Madam Chairman, can you hear me or not?
I can hear you very well, thank you.
I'm even better at this than I thought I was then. It's probably quite a small point, really, but I think, and I don't want to be the bringer of bad tidings. However, I think that Boston Borough Council made a fairly big mistake, or maybe it was just the timing was wrong. Maybe I'm accusing them wrongly. But, you know, it is very confusing for members of society, and we have a mixed groups of society within Boston, that we made a mistake with having our green bin being the one that we put all the mixed refuse in, the rubbish that we don't want to sort of accommodate anymore. And in fact, the international coding for safety colours is actually contra to what we are putting out. So when we get people putting stuff in the green bin, you know, just willy-nilly, and into the blue bin, we're masters of our own disasters, if you like. The green bin is always known to be a safe element. No matter what, when you work on the safety sign business as I did, green was always the safe way of doing anything. So all your signs for exit and getting away safely was done in green. Then the other colours followed in behind, mandatory being blue, etc., red being don't do it. So in fact, I think we have created a problem ourselves, which I think it will take a far greater brain than mine to come up with a solution. And I understand that it wasn't done without any thought. It was obviously a situation of circumstance. One of the other things I was very fascinated by, Councillor Goodall, I think it was, it mentioned about having some kind of a community sort of drop-off zone, if that's what you like, if that's what we can call it. But it's surely not beyond the realms of possibility that for the recycling of paper, etc., that neighbourhoods couldn't have a fairly big tank of some description with a slot that you can't get anything in except flat paper. In other words, if someone goes down with cardboard boxes, you have to trample on them to make them thin, so that it does go into the slot. And the slot idea is simply because I do understand that communities aren't all very caring, and they'll push into the slots or the hole or lift the lid and put whatever they want in there. And the only reason for the slot is to actually to make people break down the cardboard or paper or whatever, and put the slot in such a way that it is too thin to take anything else. They're just sort of throw them in the pile and see what people think ideas. But I do think that we really need to give it some serious thought. Not that serious thought hasn't already been given. So I applaud what's been done, and I'm not being critical of what is yet to be done. And I think we ought to just have to, well, put our nose to the grindstone and see what we can come up with. But at the moment, it is a massive problem in this town and other areas, and we really need to get hold of it. And it might need some money throwing at it. And I really do hope that we can come up with a far better solution than so far has been found. Thank you, Madam Chairman, for letting me speak. And I go back to the committee now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Victoria, did you want to sum up at all on this?
Yeah, well, thank you, and yes, there's certainly some good ideas there that we will have a look at, and you know, and see how we can take it forward. But like I say, that we want this to be a success, don't we? And the only way we make it a success is to make it as easy as possible for people to recycle and to understand what they need to do. So anything that we can do that can help in that regard, then certainly we will. Interesting points have been made about you know, the consistency, if you like, and there's been massive debates nationally about consistency of recycling collections, because they are so different. from in every area you live in, and rightly so they should be, because not every area is the same. But the government has set out with the waste and resources strategy that they want to ensure a consistent set of recycling materials for all councils, and that's something that across Lincolnshire we've done. So now across Lincolnshire, all the borough district councils and city council all collect these same materials in at curbside. And that, you know, that took a while to get there, but we're there. So we're slowly starting to make it more straightforward for people, and we work much harder now on getting those messages right and getting consistent messages out. So I think, you know, we will see an improvement, and we will learn from that as we roll the trial out. And just the other thing to point out is that by 2023, the expectation is that again came from the resources and waste strategy, is that all houses will have consistent set of materials, but also will be now separating out food waste. So you know, we have got a lot to work to in the future. There's a lot coming for us. There are mandatory targets will be coming in 2023. So like I say, we need to get the collection as the best we possibly can for our residents, but we also need to make sure that they're able to use it, because without them using it, then it's not going to work. And you know, we need to be in a good place to meet the additional changes that will be coming over the next few years. So yeah, exciting time for waste in Boston and across Lincolnshire.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Stevens, have you got a last word to say? No, okay, that's fine. Okay, well, thank you very much, members of the committee, for that. We will now move on to the second report this evening, and this is the Climate Change and Environment Update. This report starts on page 55 of the agenda, and Sarah Baker is going to present this. And we also have in attendance Councillor Paul Skinner as the portfolio holder for climate change. Okay, there are some recommendations on this that we need to vote on. They are: one, that the committee recognises the progress already achieved in delivering the 9 recommendations approved by full council in January 2020 and support the next step as outlined in the paper. And the committee recommends the adoption of the environment policy to Cabinet. Okay, so I'll hand over to Sarah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you very much for having me. It's nice to see you all, albeit virtually. It's my first Boston meeting, so I'm sure it'll be the first of many, but it's good to see you all. So yeah, in terms of the report today, there's a bit of background, I suppose. So I've been in post with East Lindsey District Council since April as Climate Change and Environment Manager, and really been working with Christian, kind of looking at the Boston side of things for the last 3 or 4 months. And one of the things that we felt was quite clear, that obviously this has been a difficult year with kind of COVID taking a lot of the focus, but there hasn't really been anybody in post at Boston to push forward the 9 recommendations that were agreed by the council in January of last year. And obviously at that point, the declaration of the climate change emergency. So what we really wanted to do was sort of take stock a little bit of where things have got to. I'm not going to go through kind of the progress of each recommendation in detail tonight. Obviously happy to answer any questions, but hopefully you've all had a chance to look at those kind of in detail in the appendix. I think what's nice to be able to say from that is that despite the fact there hasn't been somebody kind of in post to drive it forward, we have made some achievements there. So obviously we have a new corporate priority in the corporate strategy now. We've recently agreed new committee report templates, and there's now a clear format for officers to follow in terms of how they need to take the climate change and environment considerations into account when putting forward reports. So there has been some good progress made. The report today really is just designed to update you fully, but then to kind of brief you on what we see the next steps as being, and hopefully the committee will feel that they are appropriate and will help to deliver the aspirations of the working group when it put those recommendations together. So one of the first things that we want to do, and is on the agenda here today, is to adopt an environment policy for the council. So again, it's something that, coming into post at East Lindsey, we were in a similar position. We had the priority within the corporate strategy, but there wasn't really anything to underpin that in terms of how we should be delivering that priority and that aspiration. So the idea of the policy, which again I can talk about in more detail really, is to provide that mandate and make sure there's some clear objectives for doing that. We agreed the one in East Lindsey back in November, and the policy, which I'll go into a little bit more in a few minutes, takes a similar approach, but really also enables us to align across the alliance. And quite a lot of what we're looking at here in terms of next steps for Boston, we'll see as kind of picking up some of that. Boston, I think in previous years, has done an awful lot of work, particularly around carbon reduction. Obviously, you're used to doing kind of the annual reports on that, and there has been a lot of progress undertaken. But in more recent times, I'd say over the last year or sort of 9-10 months, we've been able to make some progress in East Lindsey, which I hope we can help now bring to Boston, and get both councils aligned to really help push things forward. So you'll see in the report that we're in the process of hopefully commissioning the Carbon Trust to produce a new carbon reduction plan, just waiting for the kind of formal proposal on that. But again, recognising that Boston's done a lot of work on this agenda previously, but we have just adopted a carbon reduction plan in East Lindsey that the Carbon Trust has produced, and it's a really useful benchmarking tool for us to know where we are and to have that kind of professional insight to where we need to go next in terms of how we really achieve the aspiration that's been set out. And you'll obviously recall in terms of the recommendations that the council would like to be net zero in advance of the target set by national government. So that the Carbon Trust work really would help to align with that. And I think if we have that similar plan on a similar footing for both councils, it will then provide opportunities to align perhaps some of the projects and identify cost savings across the alliance in terms of delivering some of that. So I think that will be a really useful tool to do that. One of the other things that we really want to do is to make sure that the council itself gets its own house in order. So that's part of having the environment policy and the carbon reduction plan, but also that the climate change and environment agenda is really embedded across the authority. So making sure that kind of all the service areas are working to agreed objectives. But I think in order to do that, we need to ensure that both the officers and to a degree as well, that the members have an understanding of what we mean, particularly in terms of kind of climate change and carbon literacy training. We're all very familiar with hearing kind of a lot of the buzzwords and things like that, but it's actually understanding that a bit more. So one of the things that we'd like to do is bring in a programme of carbon literacy training, which will help to ensure that, say, officers and members are more informed, understand the issues and how, as both individuals and as organisations, we can help to contribute towards tackling meeting the targets that we've set both kind of nationally, but also as local councils. I've talked about kind of getting our own house in order because I think the council has a very important role to play in then the community leadership side of things and the responsibility to help take forward action and to work with kind of wider borough, because what we do, particularly in terms of carbon reduction, in terms of our own operations, is a very small part of a much bigger problem. So if we can help to provide that leadership, then that's a really important role. And it was something that was picked up in one of the recommendations around the idea of having a climate change assembly. So that's something that I think we really need to try and take forward, because although it might not be that the council itself really pushes that assembly, I think if we can take the leadership to establish that, get the key sectors and the stakeholders on board, identify what the areas are where we can provide support, but also provide that platform to get everybody together to look at how we tackle things at a borough level. I think that's going to be really important. And as part of that work, to enable us to do that and to gain that understanding, I think we need to have that climate change strategy, which really gets a better understanding of what's happening across, in terms of the strategy, we'd have it across the alliance. So it would be looking at both the borough and the district in terms of, you know, where the key issues are, and how we might try to tackle those, and which stakeholders need to be involved, and different partners to do that. So I think, again, those are sort of down the line. I would hope that we could perhaps look to try and establish those towards the middle of this year. But there's quite a bit of work for us to do as a council to get ourselves on the right track, really, in doing that. So I think that's quite an overview of things. So there's a lot more detail we could go into in terms of it, because, so particularly as I've seen for East Lindsey, it's sort of been a new area of focus for us. And while at Boston, as I say, recognising you've done a lot of this in the past, it's kind of that renewed push now. So it touches a lot of areas, and as I mentioned, it really needs everybody in every service area to come on board and make sure that it's part of their planning. You know, whenever you're putting together projects, etc., it's being considered, and we're starting to see that work coming through, with it being now a key part of the committee reports. It's also feeding into kind of project documents for officers and things like that. So we're on the right path with that. If I just pick up on the environment policy in a little bit more detail, because obviously we're asking members here that we can take that to cabinet, really, essentially. So the draft that you've got before you, it's quite, as I say, it's quite a straightforward document. It's not lengthy at all. It's designed to be just quite simple and provide that mandate, really, for the climate change and environment work across the council. In terms of how it aligns with the East Lindsey one, the 4 key themes are the same, and that then feeds into the committee reports and the project documents as well. So it enables us to align that. But underneath each of those themes, there's slightly sort of tweaked objectives relating to Boston, sort of picking up some of the aspirations from the working group reports and the recommendations, really. So they are broadly similar, unsurprisingly, but there are sort of some areas where we've tried to tweak that in terms of making that specific to Boston. So hopefully that's reflected in the draft. But I think that's probably enough from me right now, but happy to take any questions or to answer any queries that anybody might have on any of the areas, because there is quite a lot that we could cover, but I don't want to talk all night at you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I would just like to say, would the portfolio holder, Councillor Paulskin, like to come in before we start debate?
I certainly would. Thank you very much, Chairman. In fact, the environment and climate change is part of our very core considerations with our new strategy. That's how important it is to this council. It's undoubtedly covered by Sarah, the fact that we can't do this all on our own. And in actual fact, the bit of our area, you know, that council occupies is not going to really make the changes that we need to get to getting where we need to with climate change. So I think that we've got people within our alliance area that do things very, very well. And we've, for instance, like the town deal, we've got people that do partnership work with us. And I think the key to getting this to move somewhere is to draw on that experience that we have in our area. And that is considerable, whether it be housing, whether it be vehicles. There's a whole lot of stuff out there. And in doing that, not only will we raise our own game, we'll bring a big benefit to the whole area. So, yeah, that's enough from me. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. I see we've got Councillor Aston wanting to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Sarah, for a comprehensive and incredibly useful report, and your presentation likewise. And also my apologies, because some of what I'm probably going to say will be fairly familiar to you. but I mean, these aren't so much questions or queries; they're more general observations. I couldn't agree more in respect of the environment being one of the three pillars of sustainability, and as we are interminably familiar, that has an incredibly important role to play within the planning process. And I know I've made my view very clear in terms of policy around this with colleagues at times before, that one of my major bugbears is the obsession of our modern age with building detached homes that are so close to each other that you can't walk between them, and the amount of materials that are wasted on end walls and gable ends, the thermal efficiency which is lost in the process. To fulfill our 21st century desire to claim that you know, our new house might be detached or semi-detached, whereas actually a very nice terrace would be far better to live in, give far more livable space, because the space that is currently taken up by a completely pointless gap between properties could be used for larger rooms. And if there is anything that we are ever able to do as planning authorities, and I appreciate having a degree of experience on this, at the moment our tools are relatively limited, but I am very keen always to see what we can do through the planning process to deliver on some of these aims and objectives, because that's where we have an opportunity as planning authorities. I appreciate that with Boston, the South East Links Joint Planning Committee that we have set up to look after the South East Link local plan hasn't met since it certainly hasn't met in this council term. It was supposed to start its programme of meetings in 2020, beginning of 2020, and they were derailed completely by COVID and never really got back together. I appreciate there's been political changes at the South Holland end, and the composition of that joint committee will probably be 80% changed as to what it was when it last met. But I've already, I think it's useful. I sit on that, I'm appointed to that committee by this council. As I say, not that it has met yet. I think it'd be really, really useful to that it does meet as soon as possible into 2021, and that we can have a serious discussion across the SELP area of how we make progress and pick up the themes that are set out here and run them through into Boston and South East Lincolnshire planning policy. And I've already explained my views as well, that the opportunities that are afforded in other legislation that is anticipated and in process around environmental net gain and that side of things offers huge opportunities, which I'm sure fits in with the aspirations that we've already set out as a council. I suppose the one thing I'd flag with this is in theme is in theme 2, wherever it's gone, which is on page 64, which looks at the action to reduce the carbon footprint across the council's own estate and operations, etc. I suppose what we have with Boston is a slightly more challenging financial position that I think we just need to be mindful of, that we don't try and save the planet and lose the council, but I'm sure there's a lot that we can do within the scope. But we are maybe a bit more pinched here than we'd probably like to be on having the wriggle room to do some of to push some of these things. But all in all, I heartily welcome the report. As I say, thank you, Sarah. It's brilliant, and I would very happily recommend to Cabinet that it is that the environment policy is adopted. I mean, if it's necessary, I might be a bit quick out of the traps on this one, and this is no reflection that however long the debate may go on for. But I'm very interested to hear contributions from all members. But I would just simply say that I'd be very happy to move recommendation 1 and 2. Thank you very much for a fantastic report and a great presentation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ashton. Next is Councillor Danny.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I was going to recommend the recommendations, but I will be a seconder at this case to Councillor Ashton. I will thank Sarah for the presentation. I think the report is very clear. I will talk about myself. I think we should all contribute to these facts because it is getting dangerous for our new future generations. We have to think about it utterly. If we drive a V6 car, a probably bigger engine, we should probably buy a smaller one as a Suzuki, maybe 1.1, and reduce the carbon emissions. So we have to take part in these. And I think we should start from ourselves to work harder on these matters. And I think we should show all of us as we are an example of leading the new generations for the future, because it's very important to deal with this matter. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, very welcome. I would like to just say something. I see Councillor Watson's wanting to speak as well. Are there any other members of the committee wanting to speak before I bring Councillor Wellborn? Do you want to come in first? And I'll bring Councillor Watson in as the observer at the end.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, the report is absolutely brilliant, and thank you, Sarah, for the presentation. My one observation is that are we going to go down the route of having these plastic bottle sort of banks where we put the bottles in, we get a token or money out to buy more to save them all going to, I mean, they are recycled, but not to a great deal in this country. But also, I know in a lot of other countries, they're now using them to do road coverings. I think there could be a great deal made from us recycling the bottles separately and using them for other purposes. And I'm hoping that sometime along the line that this is something our council and East Lindsey will adopt. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wellborn. Councillor Goodale.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A good report, yeah, I agree, and I'm happy to support the recommendations. The thing which concerns me the most is the word in 4.2, significant financial resourcing. Significant bothers me quite a lot. And I do note that there are grants available and also interest-free loans available. I fully appreciate that we can't do nothing, but I have to agree with Councillor Tom Ashton that we can't. There's no point saving the planet and losing the council, as he puts it, and putting ourselves in great financial difficulty. I think one thing we do have to, acknowledge round here is the fact that we are basically reasonably isolated, and obviously the greatest saver of for us to actually offset our carbon footprint and whatever would be a very substantial upgrade in public transport, very accessible and more cheaply. Although that's not within our remit, I agree. But I mean, I do think that we are, as leaders of the community, we should be making as much effort as we can to lead the way and and to do the right thing. And I agree, we do need to have our own house in order before we can actually say to other people, you should do this and you should do that with your businesses or whatever. But I do think we need to be very mindful of basically the resourcing. And I'm a bit loath to, although I agree and I will support both the recommendations. I do think that this council will have to seriously need to consider the financial requirements of this authority. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Councillor Goodall. Councillor Paul Skinner, did you want to come back in on any of those points at the moment, or put your hand up?
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much. I will just reassure Councillor Goodale, it's while delivering value for money we're doing all this. In all things we've got to do is actually provide value for money for our users, the people in our area, while delivering our objectives for the environment. Obviously, we're looking at quite a lot of different projects at the moment, including electric buses. You know, it would be really a good idea if you know, nobody rural is piloted anything like that, but it's all early days, so it would be really fantastic to be the first. We do a lot of things first in Boston if we can, and I would look forward to those sort of initiatives. I mean, forever we've had the problem with our air quality on the Haven Bridge. Certainly with current situations, air quality has improved because the amount of traffic has gone down. So any way that we can improve traffic by electric motorification or whatever has certainly got to be good. But we are definitely have to deliver value for money for the electorate. That's not a choice. That's where we're at. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Before I have my say, I would like to bring in Councillor Watson. And I'm really pleased to see you here tonight, Councillor Watson, because as you were on the working group. So if you'd like to put your comments forward, I'd welcome them. Thank you.
Indeed, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak this evening. It was indeed a privilege and a pleasure to be on the working group for climate change with this council. I would like to think that the way in which we're going to save the environment, excuse the pun, but we're going to save the council as well. So what I've found in life generally, and I'm a quiet greenie, I suppose, every time I make energy savings, I save money. And I'd like to think, and now what Councillor Goodale mentioned about the costs, and I'm thinking now about the financial implications of this report on page 58. Maybe I could ask Sarah Baker, would those costs be saved? And if so, in what sort of length of time would one expect these recommendations to save those sorts of setup costs? Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Sarah, would you like to come back on that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So in terms of, I think it was Councillor Skinner sort of hit the nail on the head, really. We don't know what the cost of a lot of these things will be as yet. There's a huge amount of work that needs to go into that. But in every case, it will be really down to looking at the cost benefit analysis of those projects, looking at what the return on the investment is going to be, and ensuring that that stacks up. And as you say, we would hope that in the majority of cases, by making these changes, it will have that impact, but there will undoubtedly be some situations where it's perhaps on a bit of a knife edge, or perhaps even the other way, but we will have to sort of take all of those, I think, on a case-by-case basis. So I can't sit here and say, or even try to pluck a figure out of the air at the moment as to what we might be looking at, but I think it really will be, let's say, that case-by-case basis. and the other thing to consider as well is that we're at the start. Well, say in Boston's case, you've done quite a lot of work over the last few years anyway, but right now we're kind of at the start of a journey where we haven't got all the answers as yet. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we will see significant changes in technology and other areas that we aren't yet fully aware of, or we don't fully understand how they will work, and so we will have to be able to move with those. It's probably worth me just kind of picking up Councillor Goodale's point there. He picked up about the grant side of things, and all I can say at the moment is that there is quite a lot of funding coming forward from central government. So, for example, we've been able to undertake an initial feasibility study of the municipal buildings, entirely grant funded, and the plan had been that we would then move almost straight away onto submitting an application. That the initial deadline was the 11th of January for that. The actual fund, the Public Sector Decarbonisation Fund, has been oversubscribed this time, but we are told there will be another round. And from the conversations that we'd had, it would seem highly likely that those costs for those improvements to the municipal buildings would be almost entirely funded, pretty much fully funded through that grant. So obviously that there will be some areas where it isn't that straightforward, and there may be things that we need to pilot that we can find a funding for. And I think it will ultimately be a mixture, as I've said in the report, really, of some grant funding, some investor save projects and that kind of thing, really. So a lot of different elements. There isn't going to be one kind of big ticket solution to all of this. I think that's the main thing to understand, and that this will really develop over time, and it will be that kind of individual project basis that we have to assess what the true cost of everything is going to be, and thinking about those lifetime costs as well, which it's very, I think a lot of work previously has been driven by the need to save money, and actually now we need to look at it from a different perspective, but obviously looking at the financial implications of that, but looking at it in a different way to what we might previously have done, and really say looking at that whole life cost of various measures.
Okay, thank you very much. I would just like to say that I'm fully behind this and the definitely the environment policy. I'm very interested in the carbon literacy training, and I shall look forward to that. So this environmental issues are a real passion of mine. And also I think once we've got our own house in order, helping the community and sharing things together will be extremely good. One question I've got, I see we're sort of that we're going to encourage through planning developers to be more environmentally friendly with their developments. When I broached this subject before, previously, I've had the reply that developers won't go down this line because it makes the housing too expensive and we can't sell them in this area. How are we going to get round that one, Sarah? Because I think we've got quite a lot of building going on in the area at the moment, and all they're doing is stuffing gas central heating boilers in, and I think what a waste. We are missing a trick with this. We could have some fabulously environmentally friendly houses, also with the water collection and things like that. How are you going to solve that one?
Again, I haven't got a magic answer for you right now, but we've been talking about it over, well, since I came into post really at East Lindsey, since April, and particularly over the last month, actually sort of really trying to give this more thought. And I think while it's going to take time to come up with the solutions and the things that we can do, we've talked about perhaps looking at putting together a sort of reference group with developers and agents to rather than try and put forward policies and impose them, if you like, on them, but actually working with the sectors to understand the issues that are unique to obviously I've been looking at this quite a lot from an East Lindsey point of view, but a lot of that will be reflected in Boston as well. So kind of looking at the local issues and the local characteristics and what we can do to address that, but trying to work closely with the developers and the agents. It's worth mentioning that obviously from a national point of view that we are going to be reliant there on sort of policy change as well. There was consultation, again, pre-COVID, it seems to have, post-COVID, it's kind of slowed down again, but something called the Future Homes Standard. We don't quite know where that will go as yet. But we have had some discussions that while it is always going to be the argument of the developer that it reduces viability, ultimately we are all going to have to address this. And if our districts are now, and I think there's a very slow turnaround starting to happen. Actually, if we are strict about this and outline, by working with developers and agents, come up with a plan, outline what we expect, ultimately we're not going to be on our own, because we're all going to have to be looking at these. Every district and every council is going to be doing similar things. So I think in some respects there's been a concern that developers might go, oh, if we can't do it in East Lindsey, we'll go elsewhere. Well, I don't think, or in Boston, I don't think we're going to come up with anything in Boston or East Lindsey that's so radical that they're going to be able to go somewhere else and find it's not a thing. I think over the coming months and years, we just need to adjust and look at what we can do. And I think developers are going to have to come on board with that. It's going to require national policy changes, but we need to be quite brave and quite bold at a local level to do this. And actually, ultimately, if they're finding the same experience everywhere they go, which broadly speaking, over the coming years, I think they will do, developers are going to have to get a handle on that. And we have talked about running through sort of viability. So we're talking, because the local plan review in East Lindsey is happening at the moment. If we are able to put together some policy changes around that, we can run them through viability assessments and make sure that what we're proposing does stack up ultimately. You know, we certainly don't want to do anything that's going to deter developers and we don't have a handle on, but we have to, as you mentioned, you know, whether it's things like water consumption or heating, we have to find the measures that we can implement to make sure that our developments are future proofed, you know, right through to things like electric vehicle charging points and things like that. If ultimately that's where we're going, there's no point in us producing developments that aren't ready, at least, to take on board those technologies. So we're going to have to be a little bit bold and a little bit ambitious about what we expect. But I think it's going to be quite a slow process, and we need to be working with the developers and the agents to do that as best we can. There's always going to be resistance to that, but I hope that will lessen, because we're not doing it on our own. I think there's going to have to be the step change across the industry.
Yeah. It'll be quite exciting to see it happening, really. I want to do it now. I have patience, but there we go.
No, I completely understand, and it would be nice to think that perhaps, you know, Boston and East Lindsey again can find those niches in those areas and lead the way in saying, no, we are going to push for these. We don't think it's going to undermine the viability of these developments hugely, but we are going to expect this going forward, and I think we don't need to be afraid to do that. We just need to find the right way of doing it.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Danny, you'd like to have a word? I see you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes. Just talking about the buildings and things, and I'm just going to share my experience. When I was brought up and when I was young, we used to live in 3-bedroom flat. It was on the 3rd floor, and the block we used to live in, it used to have more than 36 flats basically. But the whole area of blocks, they used to have one central heating station, which is a big one. And basically what we used to have in the flats, we didn't have radiators or anything. We used to have ducts on the ceiling. And then there's like sort of air conditioning. So it used to have a timer, and we used to have the heating switch on by the government, not us, it's by the Borough Council of Toulouse. Yes, it is controlled. By 6 o'clock, So you fill the house with the heating. We used to have, I think, probably bulletproof doors because they were so heavy, you cannot get any air out. And we used to have double glaze. And then we used to have what we call it, the wooden, shutters at the outside. And some of them used to be in plastic. So basically you get the heating by 6 and then it's switched off by 11. So the house, it will be hot and warm for probably the next 12 hours until you get again the heating, because during the daytime you get the sunshine and people open the windows and people do things. But that's how we used to use the heatings at that time when I was young. And I think it used to save a lot of money for the Borough Council of Toulouse. We used to live in an area which is not far from Blagnac Airport, and they called Le Mirail. So this is the things what they used to do. And it used to save a lot of money for the Borough Council because you have one central heating, you switch it on at certain times, people, they know about it, they close all the windows, the doors are locked, you go to sleep in a warm house. By the time, 10 o'clock or 11, it starts to get lower. You have a thermostat in your house to tell you how hot it is. And it was fantastic. And I think it's a great idea. I don't know if we can implement this sort of ideas in our area. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Insight, Councillor Dunny. Christian, I know you wanted to come in on the debate.
Yeah, I'm just really to offer to summarise really before members go to the vote, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, really, it's just to say, just to reflect some of the comments that have been made by members, particularly around support that Sarah's provided in putting this report together today. And since we formed the alliance with East Lindsey and Sarah's come on board, things have moved forward really quickly, and I'm really grateful to Sarah for her professional input. Also to the portfolio holder as well, to Councillor Skinner and his direct input into the environment policy and helping us reflect on where we've got to since the working group, officer member working group was established nearly 18 months ago now. Seems an age ago, but we had a very clear mandate given to us back then by the working group that was approved by full council in January. And if it hadn't been for the pandemic, I'm sure that we would have made much more progress. But what this report does do is sets out the progress that has been made and also provides a roadmap and a very sort of firm platform in terms of how we intend to move forward and actually deliver on climate change and environment benefit, which I know all of us, members of this committee and myself, are very eager to deliver. We want something tangible to come out of this, and we're very keen to move this forward. So I'm really grateful and hopeful for the support that the committee will give tonight to this environment policy and to putting it to Cabinet for approval. And with that approval, I'm confident that we can move forward and start working towards delivering a net zero carbon in advance of the government's timetable, which is one of the core objectives, which is now enshrined in our corporate plan. So that's the summary I just wanted to provide, and I'll hand it back to you, Madam Chairman, for the vote, if that's okay.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. So therefore, we already have a mover in Councillor Ashton, and we have a seconder in Councillor Danny. If I could ask Jeanette to do a roll call for the vote, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If members could indicate whether they're for, against or wish to abstain. Councillor Ashton.
For.
Councillor Bedford.
For.
Councillor Danny.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Goodale.
For.
Councillor Hasty.
For.
Yourself, Madam Chairman.
For.
Councillor Wellborn.
For.
That's unanimous, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, members. Okay. Our third report this evening is the work programme, and this is to include the Q2 performance monitoring. And this report begins on page 67 of our agenda. I'd like to go over to Suzanne now, who will provide us with a brief overview of the report, and then I will open it up for questions and look for any further reporting.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this is a quick summary of our Q2 performance. So it's from April to September 2020. There's quite a range. There's some positives and some challenges in the report. There's some really good news in terms of performance, especially in difficult circumstances. So we have planning and business support on the first few pages. Under prosperity, we have really good performance against target on those areas. But there are other areas that have had challenges. So we've had some changes in approach on car parking and markets. So we haven't been able to achieve our targets on there. Not necessarily a performance issue, more a change in circumstance on those. There's quite a lot of information in the report about waste, which obviously you've already discussed quite a bit on your first agenda item. But just to mention in particular, the fly tipping response. So a lot of the data is not in our direct control, but the fly tipping response is our direct control. We can deal with that, and that's excellent performance that's reported there on how quickly we collect those fly tips. And this is just a high level report really of our performance indicators. So it might be that there are areas that members want to know a little bit more about and dig deeper into that. And you might want to suggest those areas for your future work plan. So I'll hand back to Madam Chairman to deal with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members on the quarterly report? I don't see anything. So, oh, hang on. Well, that Councillor Goodale.
I'm there now, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just really on the collective business rates, and I'm assuming that the low percentage of net collections is simply because of the COVID-19 and this business support that we've been given. Would that be a fair assessment of that?
Yes, it's the impact of the COVID reliefs. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I thought that's probably what it was. I mean, obviously, through you, Madam Chairman, I obviously the fly tipping is a big issue for us. We've debated it already, I know, and I'm sorry to labour the point, as it were. But I think really our fly tipping teams need to be congratulated. Really, the fact that the effort they're putting in clearing the fly tipping, especially when we look at the graphs and see how much it's increased over this last year, especially in the last 3 months in particular. So I do think we should actually send them a big vote of thanks for the work that they put in. But I have to caveat that, Madam Chairman, with the fact that that they're working and meeting targets and working, well, tremendously hard, but we're still not getting on top of this as a council. I'm not blaming, it's not our fault, it's not the workers' fault. It's obviously the people who are fly tipping for whatever reason. And I do notice within this report that from where is it, September, basically the summer months, and I know some people try and blame the tip. I don't believe it's the tip at all, but with the number of fly tipping instances June, July, August and September have increased substantially. And when we actually look at the fly tip incidents, I mean, just below on page 77, I mean, it's huge in it being appearing to be mainly domestic waste and household items that are just being dumped on the streets. And I know I asked through the committee to ask the chief executive to look at the teams and how best that they could be supported to get onto this. And you'll probably seen from the emails that have been going around on the members' side that as chairman of BTEC, I was asked to call an urgent meeting, but obviously within my response, I did defer to yourself and the vice chairman of this committee as it being, that sort of thing being your responsibility. And I did wonder whether you wanted to actually, whether this committee wanted to look at fly tipping as an issue. I don't know any of the answers, and I know lots of members have given me lots of grief over this as the chairman of BTEC. I don't know if they're giving you any grief, Madam Chairman, but I certainly have had a lot. I've had lots of suggestions, but I still haven't come up with any answers. So, but I did wonder whether on our work programme, Madam Chairman, whether you and the Vice Chairman would like to call an emergency meeting on this, or just place it on the work programme, or the committee would. But I do think it's something that we do really need to get a hold of, because and I, try and look for some solutions, because it's just really getting out of hand. And some of the things that are being fly tipped, you wouldn't believe. I mean, I know we all look at Boston fly tip watching that. When you see whole joints of meat not even taken out of a wrapper, just chucked on the, just thrown out, and all sorts of food waste. And the amount of mattresses is unbelievable. I know but we all have problems with it. But it's really something that we need to get a grip of. Whether we can, as a committee, look with our officers and obviously Yvonne and other members of the cabinet, whether we can come up with a solution to this, I don't know. But it's something we've really got to try and get a handle on, Madam Chairman. And these, really, when we look at the figures of our target and what our teams are actually, returning in terms of statistics, I mean, they're working extremely hard, and it must be more soul destroying them than it is for me. As I said earlier on, the team came and cleared Granville Street yesterday, and the bags are back there again today. I mean, it must be soul destroying for them to keep returning to the same place, more or less, sometimes three times in a week.
Groundhog Day.
Well, whatever, yeah. To be honest, it's a film I've never watched.
It's very frustrating, I can assure you.
I have enough feelings of deja vu myself without actually watching somebody else's. But yeah, so I mean, I'll leave it with you, Madam Chairman. I mean, I would like us to really debate this, and whether it's something whether we have it as a one of our inquiry sessions or whatever, whatever fits in, whatever's the easiest thing. But I do think we do need to have some sort of brainstorming, which we can all really come and see if we can find. Well, not I don't really know what the solution is, but some ideas on how we can get on top of this, because it is a severe problem, especially in the town. And I know, obviously, looking at fly tip watch, members in rural areas are suffering the same, but we do seem to have people just seem to be coming and dumping van loads in the town for some reason, and I don't know why. But if we could look at that, Madam Chairman, I've been very grateful.
Yeah, I think, well, yes, I mean, obviously it's something that's concerning a lot of councillors, so I think it does warrant looking at. But, thank you very much, Councillor Goodale. Councillor Wellborn was next, and then I'll bring Councillor Stevens in as the portfolio holder.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, actually, Paul's just stolen my idea. I was going to say, can we bring this in as an item quite urgently, I think, as well. But one of the curious things, and I would like to see from Suzanne, is on page 79, the figures of how much we collect and the prosecutions. One of the biggest things I get as messages is nobody's being prosecuted. Now, I know they haven't gone to court, but it would be helpful if we could sort of say they're in the process. And also, we know that there are fines collected. If this is sort of put up as well, because people think so far that people are just dumping it, fly tipping it, getting away with it. There's no prosecutions, there's no comeback, there's no fines. We really need to get out to the public that we are doing. I mean, we know the fantastic job they all do, but I think, the public need to sort of understand that the system is slow. Unfortunately, it's even slower at the moment, but that we are doing as much as we can and that things are progressing. And yes, I would like to see it as either an item on this or as an inquiry evening. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Councillor Stevens, and then I'll bring Councillor Watson in.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I totally agree with Councillor Wellborn and Councillor Goodale, and I think if this issue could be brought to be discussed and not just criticising, but come with some solutions, because this, as I cast my mind back over, because I've lived in Boston all my life, and this is something that has started to appear over the last, well, definitely over the last 10 years. And it absolutely sickens and galls me to see it. And I think if we all work together on this, because it's affecting every councillor's area, and if we could all work together rather than just point a finger and say, because your portfolio, it's your responsibility. Yes, I accept that. But if we all work together to help our residents have a cleaner town, I know Victoria has got it on the list of things we need to do, but we have been handicapped in defence because we've had people off with COVID. We are going into recruitment for new staff, more staff in that area of refuse and road cleaning and all the rest of it. And of course, we've also got a new manager over the road cleaning people. But once everything's up and going, I'm going out with them because I can clean and I've got a good nose to know what is clean and what is shoddy. And at the moment, our town is dirty. I totally agree with everybody, but it's something that through a set of circumstances, it's tied our hands. And I apologise to everybody for that, because it's unacceptable. But it's not something that I bury my head in the sand over. I am prepared to stand up and be counted, but with the support of everybody who has got ideas and maybe solutions, perhaps we could tackle something. Big bins, I don't know. But whatever it is, I would be so grateful for the support of my fellow councillors and help to get this awful problem that is blighting our town. And I'll leave it there, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Watson and then Councillor Paul Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I certainly agree with Councillor Wellborn and Councillors Goodale. This whole business of fly tipping needs a really big rethink as to how and what we are doing as a council. At Curtin and Frampton, where I am, yeah, it's not just happening in Boston, it's happening in ditches, in fields, in the town of Curtin as well. And it's absolutely appalling. I'm getting a lot of complaints about this, as I'm sure all other members are as well. I think the team that we have in the council who are dealing with this fly tipping issue are doing an outstanding job with the resources and help that they have currently. So I would certainly welcome, and I would love to, if possible, Madam Chair, to be involved in some way if there was a working group set up, or some sort of working group or think tank. I would very much relish any opportunity to share my ideas with that group. Turning to the report, it's actually on the last page, page 79. If I could just ask Suzanne Rolfe about fixed penalty notices, and just having used the calculator and worked out a few things, from 205 notices issued in Q2, September 20, fair enough, 123 have been paid. So we have 60% paid. We have unpaid 40%, which represents 82. If we then take off the 31 prosecutions that have commenced, I'm sorry, but I'm really struggling with the 51%, sorry, the 51 remaining. What's the story with those? That actually represents, if my maths is okay, up to about 25% of the total figure. Maybe Suzanne could help me with that. Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I may come back, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, some of that will be around timing. So some of that will be that the fixed penalty notice would have been late on in the quarter, so it wouldn't have had time to be paid yet. And what we're looking at doing once we get back up and running with a few more quarters under our belt is to have a table that sets out really clearly how many have been issued, how many have been paid, how many haven't, and the reasons for that. We're not quite there with the data yet, but I'm hoping Q3 to the end of December, we'll have a better way of showing that data.
Okay, Councillor Watson, do you want to come back in?
Yes, if I may, Madam Chair. And I know this is probably not going to be the most popular thing I say, but in a sense, I was pleased when we recently increased our fixed penalty notices, and correct me if I'm wrong here, anyone, from £75 to £150, if that's correct. I feel there is a lot to be said for if people know that if they do the wrong thing, there are going to be consequences, and that it is going to be followed up and it is going to be pursued to the 95th degree, whatever you like to call it. That will help us. Because unfortunately, what seems to happen, and especially where we are in Curtin, surrounded by fields, people are chucking it out of windows, they're chucking it out of backs of vans, in remote places where, of course, trying to catch someone doing that is nearly impossible. There's a better chance happening in town. But okay, thank you, Suzanne, for that. And as I say, Madam Chair, I would welcome any opportunity to share some ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Porskin, you wanted to come in.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I won't disagree with anything that's been said, but it's almost like being the guy with the torch at the end of the tunnel. I was out with the dog who you saw earlier, and I came across one of the parishioners today, and they said, I've never seen that before. There was a couple of people that stopped to look at fly tip, and they were going through the bins. I said, and all the rubbish. I said, yes, and they will be prosecuted. They're looking for addresses. So it is going on. It's maybe not going enough, but I agree with all of the comments that are said, and we need to get people to realise that, you're doing wrong, and we'll find you and we'll come and get you. And other than Paul Bohill's number, who actually know can't pay, take it away, that's the only advice I can give you. Thank you.
Councillor Ashton, and then Christian wants to come in.
Yeah, just to say very briefly that I would look forward very much to taking part in that discussion debate, whether it comes to this committee or whether it comes to a working group. I live on the side of a main road, which is equidistant between Boston and Skegness. So by the time people have finished their Big Mac, they're ready to launch it just as they're going past our house. And I have for a long time thought that wouldn't it be marvellous if the registration numbers of the car could somehow be printed on the packaging. It was certainly, as a means of discouraging people from throwing it out of their windows. So yeah, really interesting points, and I wholeheartedly support us looking at this and look forward to doing so.
Thank you. Okay. I'll just see Councillor Evans put a hand up, and then I'll bring Christian in.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
It's
definitely the most talked about subject, I think, definitely at the moment. And I'm a bit disappointed. We had Lincolnshire County Council in about how the tip was run. our recycling centre. I didn't feel that I wasn't satisfied at the end of the meeting that anything was going to change. And even though some people don't think it's linked to the tip, the majority of people say to me, particularly not from town, those that would go to the tip, that they feel that there is a link to the tip. So I think we need to relook at that. Also, I still like my Australian idea, which I'll put every time, which I'll, wait till we have the meeting. But I think there should be some really good ideas coming forward, because every councillor is quite passionate about getting rid of the fly tipping, and we're all on the same page that we've got a fantastic team out there clearing up. It's just, it doesn't seem to be working. It doesn't seem to be producing what it should for the effort that's been put in. So I think we've got to relook at how we make the tip accessible, how we make getting rid of your rubbish easier, and all put our heads together in a positive way, and just really concentrate on helping all these hard workers that are going out and doing this hard work for us. So yes, I would definitely be all for getting together. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Christian, I'd like to bring you in for your comments on this, and I think you've also got some updates as well for us.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. It was only really, regrettably, Victoria is no longer at the meeting, but it wasn't that long ago that I was sitting in the hot seat that Victoria now occupies, trying to deal with fly tipping. And I hear very loud and clear what members are saying tonight. So if it's helpful to the committee, I'm happy to have a conversation with Victoria and to talk to her about how we can bring this back for discussion with members, perhaps through an inquiry evening where it's a less formal environment, and we can explore all of the ideas that members have without the gaze of the public, and we can have some sort of frank and open conversations about how we might deal with it. It wasn't that long ago that I think we held an inquiry evening. I think Councillor Evans referred to that. But it's definitely still a very hot topic, and I'm more than happy to pick it up with Victoria and Matt and talk about how we might take that forward.
Yeah.
You've heard tonight that obviously Vic and Matt are working hard on the twin scheme rollout, so the timing will be quite crucial, because that's a big bit of work that that the team are working on. But I'm happy to take away that discussion.
Unless members want to go for a working group.
Liaise with you if that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. So unless members want to go for a working group, so it's entirely up to whichever way they want to go.
I'd like a working group, Madam Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm seeing a few nods. So yeah, happy to work with you, Councillor Skinner, on that.
Yeah. So therefore, if members who would like to express an interest would like to contact Jeanette to let her know who wants to go ahead, and then we can take it from there. Is that all right, Jeanette?
Yes, please. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, and then we can sort out some timings, Christian.
Only caveat I would say is just around the timing.
Yeah,
sorry,
that's fine. But see what we can sort out. One we know.
The only caveat I would say is around timing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that seems to be quite good, I think. And then we can look at what other authorities are doing and things like that, and that can be put in the hands of members to help with the timing of your rollout on the twin bin recycling and things like that.
Yeah. So updates. I'll just quickly go time, but I think there was 5 updates that committee members asked for this evening. So I'll do my best to go through those with Matt's help, hopefully.
Yeah.
So the first one was around providing members with an update on the opening hours of the Waste and Recycling Centre, and I believe that information has already been circulated to members. I'm told after the meeting. The second one was that the Assistant Director Assets to forward the concerns of the committee in respect of increasing incidents of dog kidnapping. Now, I've spoken to the Assistant Director of Assets, Andy Fisher, and he did raise that with Inspector Fran Harrod. After the committee, the feedback that he got from Fran Harrod was that they hadn't seen any increase in complaints or reports of crime relating to incidents of dog kidnapping in their numbers. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not happening, and or maybe that it's going on reported, but that's the feedback he got from Fran. The third one was related to an update we provide. Sorry,
I just lost you there a little bit, that last sentence. I don't know if everybody else did.
So it was number 3, that an update be provided in respect of installation of CCTV at recognised fly tipping hotspots across the borough, and perhaps Matt can update on that particular one if that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, Madam Chairman. We have obviously entered into a contract with a company called Optimal Risk, and they're providing us with an overt surveillance CCTV service that will support our environmental crime activities. We do have a camera installed at ASDA. Within a matter of 2 weeks, we had 175 observations at that particular location. So a significant amount of activity that's being observed already. So that should start to come through the performance information that Suzanne talked about. So it's a really good start, and obviously we're still working with county colleagues in relation to deploying this capability further afield than that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Number 4 was to bring back a report, to ask the Assistant Director of Operations to bring back a report on public conveniences. And I think we've got that schedule around April. I've just looked, it's not actually reflected in the work plan, but again, I'll have a conversation with Victoria Burgess offline and get that in the work plan so it's in front of members at the appropriate time. And a conversation for you and I to pick up, Madam Chairman, at our next briefing perhaps. And the final one was around an update on the issues of the random turning off of streetlights within the town centre, particularly West Street and through Wide Bargate. And again, I know Matt's had some updates from Lincolnshire County Council that he can share with us this evening. So Matt, over to you if I may.
Yeah, absolutely. Madam Chairman, we obviously referred our concerns that were raised at an earlier meeting in respect to the failed streetlights, and they're in the area of West Street, Bridge Street and Marketplace. So we referred those to the county. They provided an update in November last year. Now, the county met with their street lighting contractors, Balfour Beatty. They identified a problem with a particular type of LED lighting strip upgrade that they've put in these older units, and that upgrade hasn't been effective over time. So they've referred that to their manufacturers. They've requested a permanent repair, and the manufacturers are looking at a permanent solution for that. But at the time of the report, all lights were working except one on West Street, working in part, save for the exception of the lighting strip that had failed. But they do say it's work still to be done before we get a permanent solution. But that's the update I've got for you.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
That concludes the updates, Madam Chairman.
Okay, right. So our next meeting is on the 23rd of February. At this time, we've just got the one report, which is an update from the Task and Finish Group review. So we'll just see how that goes and see how things are nationally with everything. So if there's nobody else wanting to make any comments, I can close the meeting, and thanking everybody else for their attendance and their input. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thanks, everybody. See you
Oh, well,
later.
good
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.